Hello YouTube, this is Attila from computershowto.pro, and today I am going to try to show you how you can try PcLinuxOS Mate edition or Gnome edition without actually installing it or without actually even using a CD. Why would you want to try it without using the CD? Well, simply because if you don't like it, the CD is gone, and if you try it from a USB stick, you can still reuse the USB stick the way you want it. So first of all, we are going to have to head to PcLinuxOS.com, fire up your web browser, type PcLinuxOS.com, press enter. On the web page that appears, click on Get PcLinuxOS, this link here, and from the flavor list that appears, select Mate Desktop. Click on the Mate Desktop. Mate is actually a descendant of the Gnome desktop. Scroll down a little bit on the page that loads and select the mirror that is closest to you. In my case it's Romania, so I'm going to click on the Romanian mirror. On the page that appears, most probably, even though you select another server, the list will be pretty much the same. So I'm going to select PcLinuxOS Mate 2013 715 ISO. Right click on it, select Save Link As, and I am going to use a completely separate partition I have prepared for this. I'm going to create a folder PcLinuxOS and download the compressed ISO file here. Click on Save. I'm going to have to wait for a couple of minutes until the file downloads. In the meantime, we are going to need a decompressor, archiver, and archiver program, so we are going to download 7-zip, which I recommend for almost any kind of compressing, decompressing work you have to do. Simply type into the address bar download 7-zip and press enter. It will automatically load Google with the result page. Click on the first link, presumably it will lead to the same page, 7zip.org. Click on the executable you want to download. It will take you to the SourceForge page. On it you can click Save File, save to the same folder, PcLinuxOS, click on Save again and wait for a couple of seconds until the file downloads. When it's downloaded, go ahead, double click on it. Of course, we are alerted that it's an executable file and it can harm your computer. Never mind, this one is not going to harm your computer. Click on OK. Simply click Install to install it. Click Finish and you have 7-zip installed. I'm going to pause the video now for a few seconds until the download completes. Okay, after a few minutes, when the file is downloaded, in the list of downloads from your browser, right click on the file, select Open Containing Folder, and you can click on it or directly right click on it and select from the context sensitive menu 7-zip extract here. Or you can extract the files directly to your USB stick. It's simply better to extract here. Wait for a couple of minutes, depending on how fast your computer is, you will have to wait for a couple of seconds. I recommend uncompressing into the folder on the hard drive because it does the job much faster than it would have done it decompressing directly to the USB stick. Now, after decompressing the ISO file, we need to see which version of the ISO Linux it uses as a bootloader. we need to see what's in this isolinux.bin file. So we are going to need Total Commander or Windows Commander as it's called of lately. If you have it installed, you can skip the next step. If not, fire up your browser again, type in 3 times wgisler.com, which is gisler.com. Press enter. Here you go, this is the official page of Total Commander. Click on download in the left menu, and you can click on direct download, of course, hosted by Amazon CloudFront. Select the 32-bit version if you're using 32-bit version XP or 64-bit, depending on what architecture your computer is running on. Click Save File, and of course I recommend saving it to the same folder, which is in my case PcLinuxOS, on a separate partition. After it's been downloaded, double click on it, click OK to execute it. Replace installed version. In case you don't have a version installed, this message will not even appear. I will say install normally, select the language, next. Do you also want to install all other languages? It doesn't even matter, simply click next, next, and yes. Next. And all users, if you have several users, or simply this user on which you're logged in, or which you're logged in. After installation, it's recommended you keep the browser window still open, simply minimize it. And now fire up your freshly installed Total Commander. You'll see immediately why. Press the button that you need to press in order to start the program, since it's just a shareware version. Now locate the directory in which you have downloaded and extracted the files, and inside it, inside the isolinux folder, locate the file isolinux.bin. Press F3 or click on View. This little program, Total Commander, has a totally unique viewer in the world, in my experience, that can view what's inside the file, binary file, without actually interpreting the file. So here we go, this is what we are interested in. We want to see what version the loader is using. It's isolinux 3.85. Now we are going to download a similar version, or the same version, but not isolinux, syslinux, which is for loading from hard drives. Isolinux is for CDs. So we are going to type again, download syslinux 3.85. Press enter, Google takes you to the right page. I recommend using the file from the kernel org and not from launchpad.net. Click on the second link in my case and locate the version number 385. 3.85. Select the zip version, which is much easier to handle. Right click on it, click on Save Link As, select the same folder, click Save, wait for a couple of seconds, and there you go, you have downloaded syslinux. Now you can get rid of the browser window, and since Total Commander is already loaded, simply press enter about the file or double click, and on the other pane select the same folder, so you can extract one single folder from the archive, because this is the only thing we are interested in. You can simply click and drag to the other panel, click OK, then enter this folder by double clicking on it. You see the letter. So after extracting the folder, you can exit the archive, plug in your USB stick, wait until your operating system recognizes it. You see that another letter appeared here. Without left clicking on it, simply move the mouse cursor over it, right click and select format. Be careful, everything you have on that stick is gonna be lost. Select FAT32 default allocation size. I recommend renaming this to Live CD and not selecting quick format. You'll see in a couple of minutes why we need to name this Live CD. Click on Start, accept. The alert tells you it's going to format and make you lose all data on it. Wait a couple of seconds. And there you go, you have formatted your USB stick. Presumably. Okay, you can click on Close. Now you can load it in a panel by left clicking on it. And we are going to move the boot, the ISO Linux and the Live CD SQFS file over to it. Click on copy and wait until the copying is done. Until then, I am going to pause the clip. Okay, so I've paused the recording for a few seconds. Now we just have a few seconds left from the copy operation. After copying the file is done, or the files is done, you want to move the ISO Linux folder into the boot folder, so I'm going to load on both panels the stick, enter on one of the panels the boot folder, go to the other panel, click on ISO Linux folder, press F6 on your keyboard, press enter, it's moved, then enter the boot folder again, it doesn't matter in which panel, and rename the ISO Linux folder to PcLinuxOS. So click on the folder or select the folder and press Shift F6, press Home, delete 3 times and replace ISO with sys, lowercase letters of course, PcLinuxOS. Now enter that folder and we're going to rename the isolinux.cfg with PcLinuxCFG. And remember when I told you I'm going to show you why we need to name this USB stick or label it as Live CD, because in the PcLinuxCFG file, upon editing it in WordPad, open with WordPad, you'll see that in the config file the Live CD equals Live CD, actually, which means that the Live CD has to be labeled. Whatever is here after the equal sign is how it's going to be recognized, or the files are going to be searched on a partition which has this label, whatever the label is after the equal sign. So the files are going to be searched on it. You can safely close and eject the USB stick at this moment. But if your USB stick has not yet been used for another Linux Live CD installation, I recommend you first make it Linux boot capable or ISO Linux boot capable, which is why we have downloaded the PcLinux bootloader. Enter this Win32 folder and we are going to use this PcLinuxOS executable to make the stick bootable by clicking on it, pressing Ctrl Enter here. It will bring down to the command line the executable, and check your USB stick labels letter, partition drive letter, age, and press enter. There you go. If you click on it now to load the partition, you will see that in the root directory there's an LD Linuxsys, which is the Linux loader, which will look in the boot folder in a PcLinux folder for the PcLinuxCFG to load the configuration files. Now I'm going to eject the thumb drive, and I'm going to record with the phone the boot process after restarting the computer. Okay, we have created the USB thumb drive necessary for trying out PcLinuxOS Mate edition. Let's see if we can actually boot from it. I'm going to restart the PC with the thumb drive left in the USB slot plugged in. Let's see what happens. Unfortunately, some of the logout messages were in Hungarian, but never mind. So upon restart, I'm going to click F9 on the boot menu, but on your computer it might be different. And I'm going to select boot from USB device. Because of some unknown matter, it tells me that the bootlogo file is too big. Never mind. Press Tab. You will see that this right here is what you need to type in. The name or the label name of the first configuration section in the file, which is Live CD. Respect the proper casing and press Enter. And in a couple of seconds you will have your new PcLinuxOS Mate edition loaded. You have to have patience, especially if your USB slot is a 1.1 version and not a USB 2.0, because it will obviously load everything much slower than the newer versions. Nevertheless, it's worth a try, because in a few minutes you will have a complete operating system at your disposal without even installing it on the computer. There you go, this is the splash screen. If you press Escape, you can see what's going on in the system behind the scenes. And if there's nothing interesting going on, or no messages, or you want to return to the splash screen, press Escape again. It might take a couple of seconds until the system reacts even to the fact that you have pressed the Escape key, especially if it's in the detecting hardware phase. So I pressed Escape again, it has returned to the splash screen. Usually, if the Union file system is mounted, the system will load without a problem. Mounting loop image. Well, if the loop image is mounted, the desktop will load. On the first screen that appears, you just have to select what kind of keyboard you would like to use. Usually US is selected, so I just click Next. You have to have patience. You probably is a little slower than you might have expected. So an info message appears telling us that the username and password for the Live CD are guest and pass guest for the guest account and root for the root account. Even if you don't click on it, it will disappear after a few seconds. So here you go. You have an entire operating system at your disposal, PcLinuxOS Mate or Gnome edition. I hope this helps. Come back to the blog soon. Visit the blog, visit the YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to receive updates or newly uploaded videos. Thanks for watching. Please leave a comment.